Moving on to the second stage, or the third stage, I guess, of a star's evolution is when it actually becomes a star. Here we have what is considered a main sequence star. Main sequence stars are kind of living out the normal part of their lives. Kind of what defines that is that the core is fusing hydrogen into helium. As we mentioned in the last one, 4 hydrogens fusing into 1 helium, giving out energy. And that's what makes a star stable, because you remember from the last one, it began as a nebula and began compacting. Gravity began to shrink it down. And so as gravity shrunk it down, it got hot. Fusion began, and it would still be shrinking because it's still made of gas, except in the core we have that fusion going on. Essentially like hydrogen bombs going off, producing lots of energy, lots of explosions, and those explosions push outward. The balance between the nuclear fusion and gravity is called the hydrostatic equilibrium. And you can tell a star is in hydrostatic equilibrium if it's maintaining a constant size. If gravity isn't winning, causing it to shrink, and if fusion isn't winning, causing it to expand, then it's in hydrostatic equilibrium. Now, the size of a main sequence star is determined by the amount of mass that it begins with. However much gas there was in that nebula, that has compacted and is now the star. If it's only a small amount of mass, just barely enough to get fusion going in the core, which, by the way, temperature at which fusion begins is somewhere around 10 million degrees Celsius. So there's just barely enough mass that the compaction causes the core to get to 10 million, well, then it's going to be fusing at a very slow rate. And so the small stars that just barely made it to starhood or stardom, they will be they'll live a very long time, because even though they don't have much fuel, they burn it so slowly that they will last perhaps hundreds of billions of years, perhaps even trillions. Of course, no stars live that long because the universe is only 13.7 billion years old, and so we're projecting based on the temperature and the rate at which fusion occurs. So then those stars which have such a small amount of fusion will not be as hot as other larger stars. And since they'll have a lower surface temperature, we'd expect them to be red, which is the lowest temperature that a metal glows at. You can see in the video, hopefully I'm able to put right here, that as we take this metal ball that's white hot, that we've heated up with a torch, or that was heated up with a torch, and dropped it into water, we see it turn from white hot to yellow hot to orange hot to red hot, and then it's no longer hot enough to glow, and so it looks the silver color that we're used to metal looking. Same thing with a star. When it's at its very coolest, it's glowing red. As the star is bigger, more massive, moving up the main sequence on the HR, or hertzsprung-Russell diagram, it gets more mass and begins to glow hotter, and therefore its color goes from red to a larger star might be orange. A larger star than that might be yellow because it's hotter, more fusion, higher temperatures in its core, to a white star on the main sequence, and all the way up to a very large star that might be blue on the main sequence. Because it's very large, and it might only live a few 100 million years compared to our sun, which will last about 10 billion years. Our sun is right in the middle of the main sequence, well, a little bit below average. And so there are many stars smaller, but there are a lot of stars bigger than the sun. When the star begins to run out of hydrogen, then it's going and it begins fusing other things. Well, it stops fusing hydrogen. We'll leave it there for now. When it stops fusing hydrogen, it kind of moves out of the main sequence phase of its life cycle and into what's called the red giant phase. And you'll see more about that in the next video titled Red Giants.